What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Crossover U College Hoops Talk podcast, which you can find, as always, on the Crossover channel. My name is Kanaye, and I'm joined with Josh. Today, we're going to be talking about a little bit of a more fun topic that we have on the table with EA announcing that they are going to be making a college basketball video game set to come out in 2028. This is something that I know me, Josh, and college basketball fans across the nation have been wanting for so long since we haven't had one in a really, really long time. I mean, I was really too young to play the likes of college hoops when those video games were coming out, and I never really got a true taste of having a college basketball video game. Of course, you can go on 2K, download college rosters. Of course, it's just not really the same as having a true video game for college basketball. So we're just pretty much going to be breaking down a lot of our thoughts and reactions to that announcement coming out. We're really just going to free flow conversation here regarding just how we feel about that announcement. But before we get into that, if you like this podcast or anything else you see on this channel, it really does help if you can engage with our videos in any way you can, whether it's liking, subscribing to our channel, or just telling other people about it. It really does help with being able to grow what we do here at the Crossover. But Josh, I'm going to ask you first, what is your initial reaction to hearing the news about EA confirming that they're going to be making a college basketball video game?
Obviously, elation. This has been a long time coming. And we have talked about for the longest time what we can do when a game comes out. Because it wasn't an if question, it was a when question. When are we getting a game?
Right.
And I'm so glad that EA, who has been really good with CFP 25 and now 26, I'm very glad they're getting it. And then Kanaye tells me it comes out in 2028. And my heart is a little bit broken because both of us will be graduated by then.
Yeah.
This is a little bit outside of our territory. I don't know if I'm going to play this game. I'm going to be honest with you. But for the masses, this is amazing. This is a complete change-up, not just in the gaming industry, but in the college basketball industry. Because if you look at how College Football 25 acted, it changed the landscape of all football games.
Right.
People don't play Madden anymore. People play College Football 25. College football is now viewed as a better sport overall. This, at the end of the day, makes college basketball look like a better game because of the video. I think it's a pretty simple thing to look at.
Yeah. And I mean, I've definitely kind of grown a little bit, where I've never been the biggest Madden guy growing up. I definitely think that college football was definitely a nice new taste to have in that landscape of having football video games. Same thing going with basketball. I mean, I'm just not the biggest 2K guy nowadays as opposed to when I was a little bit younger. And honestly, again, like you mentioned, we're both going to be graduating by the time this comes out. If that release date of being in 2020 is true, we're both going to be graduated by then. It is unfortunate. I think it would just be so fun just for people in general in college to be able to play as their school that they're going to at the current point of time, and just being able to play with your buddies at school in the dorm rooms and get tournaments going and stuff like that. I think that would be so cool. It is unfortunate. I mean, sure, they're going to be able to do that in 2020. Guys like me and Josh that aren't going to be in school by that time. It is unfortunate. We're kind of missing out on that opportunity to have those experiences. But again, like you said, I don't know how much we're really going to have time to be playing video games once we get out of school. But if I do, then I'm probably never going to buy 2K again. I'll tell you that right now. As soon as a college basketball game comes out, I mean, that's probably where the majority of my video game hours is going to be being poured into.
Definitely. And listen, you talk about it. 2K is a little bit of a pick-around. The games are very expensive. No one's really buying them. I get it that everyone wants to have newer additions to dynamics and graphics, and 25 kind of did that. 25 was better than 24, to a certain extent 23. Personally, I haven't spent money on a game for 2K since 23, and I feel like even then I shouldn't have done that. Which is kind of why, as soon as EA dropped, 2K teases their own game. They haven't announced anything, but it's fair to air it out right now on whether 2K can and honestly would make a game. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting because a lot of it is going to be determined by who ends up getting the rights to the video game. Of course, there is a slight possibility that both 2K and EA do end up agreeing with the NCAA on each getting their own individual partnerships with being able to put out college basketball video games on their own respective platforms. I will say, for the sake of us getting a college basketball video game sooner, I do hope that 2K does get the rights in some sort of capacity where it's a joint agreement where 2K makes their own game, EA makes their own game. 2K already obviously has the models and engine to be able to put out basketball games because that's what they do. I talked to Josh recording this. I'm not really all too sure how much they've kept up with making NBA Live video games. But if we're being honest, they're kind of starting with a clean slate here where they're probably gonna have to put together new engines with new graphics and motion and everything. They're gonna have to get player scans, which is different than what you're doing for football. 2K, of course, they can really just go off what they're already doing with how they scan players into game, the player tracking, movements, and all that graphics wise, but which would put 2K in a better position to put out a game sooner. That being said, I do think EA will end up putting out the better product, but it is going to be interesting how these, two companies really value different aspects of the game. Like, is how much effort are they going to put into a career mode? How much effort are they going to put into a my league sort of style of play where, you choose a team you want to rebuild, which is something I'm really excited for because I would love to pick a mid-major school or maybe a middle-of-the-pack D1 program and go through the process of recruiting players, dealing with the NIL, rebuilding the roster and putting, trying to bring, like I just said, a mid-major or middle-of-the-pack high-major program to national relevance in the video game.
No, definitely. And listen, there's a lot that will and have to go into this game. Alone, the big difference is the amount of players. I get it that there are larger rosters in college football than there is with college basketball. We're talking about 100 or so teams in college football, the FBS level. There are over 300 teams in the college basketball sphere in D1.
Right.
20-something conferences. Nearly 4,500 players that are real-life players that have to be scanned, probably bribed with NIL, knowing how P did it, and put into the game and given rankings. And listen, I'm sure there's a ton of guys at like Missouri Valley that aren't going to be happy about being 55s, but you're going to have to put the effort in at EA or at 2K to give every single player the individual stat lines, which I get it. It makes sense for giving 3 years. And now there's a women's section as well, so double that, by the way.
Right.
But the way I view it right now, and I think a lot of people view it now the same way, considering how well EA has done college football 25 and 26, I would trust EA over anything right now. My issue, though, is for people who don't have a PlayStation or an Xbox, which is not everybody, 2K becomes a good option because you can run 2K on a laptop or a PC or anything like that. You don't really need an Xbox or PlayStation for that. And I get it that EA is trying to make CFP 26 or 27 accessible via PC, and that might be available by the time you get a game, but I don't know how they can compete with 2K if it's already there. And that might be 2K's sneak edge, because 2K I don't think is going to make a bet. I'm very concerned actually about 2K making a game that annoys customers.
Yeah.
So when EA makes a game, it actually pushes them away. Because if 2K just makes another 2K game, which no one really likes 2 games game that much, but it's just college basketball, and it just ruins the college basketball game experience.
Most definitely. I definitely hear you out on your points there. I think to add to that, I just feel like EA kind of understands college sports fandom a little bit more than what 2K does. I think you've already seen in college football 25 where they understand a lot of the crowd tradition we see at the different stadiums, just how much of there's more of a personal connection to rooting for a college team than there is a professional sports team. Of course, you're living in a state that, it doesn't have a true professional sports team. A lot of people rally behind whatever the biggest college program is in that state. And I just feel like EA did a really good job in beginning to kind of get on the cusp of understanding that and really kind of putting that into the game. I think more so we're going to see that in college football 26. 2K, I very much feel like the majority of 2K players are it's just, of course, NBA fans play it the most. And I just feel like really NBA fans don't know all too much about college basketball. Of course, there's a lot that do, but in terms of, they're really different sports if we're being honest. Of course, it's fundamentally the same for the most part between college basketball and the NBA, but it really is different. It does almost feel like 2 different sports that, you are following. And I just don't know that UK fully understands what it is to really put in the traditions you're going to see of the Cameron crazies at Cameron Indoor Stadium. Some of the traditions you see across college basketball, the Kanaye at Gonzaga, Mackey Arena for Purdue, Gamble Pavilion at UConn. Just, the crowd chants. I just don't know if 2K is able to really, I'm concerned about 2K's ability to really understand the college landscape as opposed to what EA has kind of already proven that they do understand how that stuff works.
No, I definitely agree with you. I really just don't know what 2K can accomplish that would make it a better game, because if they produce it earlier and they produce it on PC, that's the only thing running for them. And it's a good thing. Don't get me wrong, I mentioned it earlier. But if EA drops a bomb of a game, we're talking about not just being super detailed or super well run. It animates perfectly with its own model. It's better than 2K with its styling and its gameplay, which I think 2K gameplay really isn't the best, and it's not really that accurate either to real NBA. And keep in mind, college basketball has very different styles than the NBA, which I think 2K I don't think will understand. And then the cultural aspects, which are so different that, I think EA understands better considering just how in-depth they've been recently with College Football 25 and 26. And to top it all off, I just generally think that they have better animations in general. I loved looking at the images of many different stadiums that were made in CFP 25. I thought they were better stadiums than Madden. And you look at the courts that they make in, NBA courts. I get that they're all the same, but there's no special design to it. It doesn't feel as unique as it should be. I feel like if you were to generate a Mackey Arena, a Cameron Indoor, a Fog Alley, it's going to look like those arenas from the inside. The same way at CFP, you would expect to see that from Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State. Those stadiums are very specifically designed. They all look a little bit different.
Definitely.
Even those little aspects, I think, are so much more enjoyable that EA, I think, knows what to do, and I don't trust 2K to do it.
Yeah, most definitely. And that kind of brings me to my point. What are or the question I want to bring up? What are some aspects or features in the game that you would like to see out of a college basketball game, whether it's coming from 2K or EA?
I will give one specifically to 2K because I think this is the one that would work best with them. And I know what's happened in CFP 25 because right now with 26, you can start a career in high school, which they just started doing that. Run a full high school career, go into college, do your 3 or 4 years there, and then you can transfer your data to the newest Madden game and play a full career of a single player that you created. I think that's amazing. I think it's one of the craziest and coolest things that you can do because you just really can't do that in any other game. Like, I'm glad, for example, MLB The Show is finally doing college ball.
Yeah.
But imagine, or even EA if they wanted to, making a high school part, which I think is a necessary thing for this, having obviously your college career, and then getting drafted and transferring your data over to and not just bringing you, but bringing the whole draft class. Imagine getting the perfect mixture of what's coming around in the college level and then moving it straight to 2K, year in and year out.
Yeah.
Not just you, but having a continuous type of movement where both games almost work together. Like if you run CBB 29, whatever it would be for you, and you can merge up with the new 2K game for year in and year out. I think that's a huge thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if they can do that. I think by the time it's 2028, it should be pretty easy technology for all I know. But I think that's a 2K thing in particular. EA, just do what they keep doing. Keep doing more of these amazing animations that are geared towards individual schools. Keep making me feel like I'm in one of these arenas. I'm playing for one of these teams. Make it feel very realistic. That's kind of what I'm looking for with EA in particular. The 2K one, they do that one, it might not be a bad game.
Most definitely. I think that'd be a great feature to have in a college basketball game, just considering that that's what EA is doing with college football right now. It'd be really cool if you could transfer over. So we're starting high school, playing college, and transfer it over to, the NBA, say 2K, if they're able to do that since they do have the NBA rights. Did you have a point you wanted to?
I was also going to say it, and I think this is more of a question for you as well. I think EA can nail the NIL and transfer portal cycle. They did it pretty decently in college football, but the college basketball transfer portal is so much more insane. There are far more players, money's a lot differently spent, and I think the recruiting part is so much more different. There isn't the same ESPN top 100 that we have in college football. College basketball has their own specialty tool. We get there are 5 stars and 4 stars everywhere. But if EA or 2K or both decide to focus on that in particular, I think it's a huge deal because NIL matters so much right now in the college basketball scene. Getting players back from the portal, getting them into the portal, getting them back in draft classes. Things like these are huge aspects that are becoming very big this year, and by 2020 should be everything that's important. I really do want that type of depth as well, which I guess gets me the question of how do you think they should model NIL? in the transfer portal?
That's a really interesting question. I know EA has come out and said that they're going to make NIL a lot more of a in-depth process that the users are going to have to go through in the next college football game, that being CFP 26. It really is interesting to see how that's going to work, just considering that, like you mentioned, the spending in college basketball is pretty crazy, just considering that you're only paying for 13 players in a roster as opposed to however many it is on a college football roster, whether it's like 50, I think it's probably around 50 something, I would assume. So you're spending more on one single player. Same thing kind of goes with, like, you land one 5-star in college football. Definitely important, but again, you have 50 something guys on a roster in college football, whereas opposed to basketball, you land one 5-star. That's huge, like groundbreaking landing. That's a groundbreaking landing for your program. Just considering you only have 13 guys, 14 guys, maybe at most 15 on a roster. So, the 5-star is probably going to be one of your star players, one of your starters. And it's really going to be interesting to see how they combine how you maybe set up an NIL package for a player. You promise them certain types of sponsorships or endorsements or whatnot. And then you also have to consider the NCAA bringing upon the rule of schools being able to directly pay their players too. That's going to be interesting to see how they integrate that into the game. So that's something I'm really curious to see.
Easily. And honestly, I think by 2028, keep in mind the system's going to get far more, I wouldn't say effective, but there's going to be far more uses of NIL in the transfer portal in the next few years. I think by the time this game comes out, it's going to be all over it. And I really do expect both programs or both companies to probably have a lot of effort into it. So I don't really want to judge who's the better one with this. But I think a huge importance in any of these games is modeling, but also using the portal as a player. The portal might be the most important aspect in college recruiting for a long time.
Right.
I also kind of wonder how they're going to do international prospects. I know it's a very new thing and probably will still be decently new by the time what would be CBB 29 most likely the name of coming out. I kind of wonder how that works as well. We don't have there's no international prospects that go to football in America, but basketball's pretty different with that one. Where do you see that one lining up, Kanaye?
I'm not really sure because if we've talked about in the past, it's so hard to really grade how international prospects are when they're coming over from overseas. We talked about it in the Duke State of the Program episode, which if you haven't seen that, definitely check that out. Where, there's really no set metric for how you rank these guys. Dame Sarr, you don't really know where he's ranked in this kind of, quote unquote freshman class, since Dame's played professionally, but he's coming in with a freshman's eligibility. It is going to be interesting to see how they kind of work that in. I guess it could be something similar to, like, say you're in a My League in 2K where you have guys coming over from coming out of college in every year's draft class, the auto-generated players. And then you have a few that are coming over from overseas. So maybe it's something like that. We're in the freshman class, or maybe in the transfer portal class, you'll see guys either coming in from high school or coming in from different schools at college programs. And you see maybe a few international guys mixed in. And, those guys you can still recruit in the portal. But again, I definitely think, for one, in the real world, they definitely need to come out with a true metric for how to rank international prospects. And then, of course, I'm assuming by 2028, we'll probably have something like that in the real world, and then they can work something like that into the game.
Definitely. And I kind of wonder how they're going to do that with freshmen as well. We see, I think the transfer portal they knocked down pretty well. But freshman recruiting is definitely now their thing. And especially with college basketball. College football is not like super undefined. Like if you have a 5-star, you have a 5-star. Typically that's going to be a good player. But college basketball, that top 100 isn't always a guaranteed you're going to have a great player.
Right.
Or outside of it. There's a lot of players that rise up over the years through just natural development. And I think that's definitely a thing that should be looked at, especially in the later years when these players really start to pop off and transfer through NIL and the portal and whatnot. And we could really see the extent to it. And listen, I'm not asking for looking into JUCO and D2 and all those things that I don't really think are that important right now, but the level of recruiting is a huge deal. It's arguably one of the most important functions of college basketball right now. They hit it pretty well, EA at least did, in the CFP series. I think they can hit it pretty well right here at college basketball.
Yeah, I definitely think so too. In terms of, just to touch on two features I would like to see in the game, one would be I know we mentioned how the NBA and college are really very different in both the play styles, just how the game works. I know you also mentioned that 2K at times really isn't realistic to how NBA games are played. I will say in the NBA, in both real life and in 2K, you see a lot of isolation basketball, a lot of just, give a guy a ball and go let him make a play, go get a bucket. I want to see a more in-depth focus on play calling in college, if in a college basketball video game, because that's just reality. That's how teams score in college basketball. You don't have the level of athletes and players that you do in the NBA on college roster. That's just the truth. They're amateurs. They're not. They kind of are professionals at this point with NIL, but they're not real professional players just yet. A lot of what they get, a lot of how they score is just coaches drawing up schemes and actions and plays to be able to get their guys open looks, put them in the best position to score easy, whether it's from three, whether it's in the paint. And then, you have some guys who are able to, 7 seconds left on the clock, you throw the ball to them, they go and make a play in isolation. But again, I would just like to see a large focus on play calling in the video game. On top of that, I know 2K puts a huge emphasis on their My Career mode every single year. You have the open world with the park and everything. I wouldn't like to see a park of any sort in a college basketball game that 2K puts out, but I will say this goes for both EA and 2K, where makes the game, or if they both make a game, I'd love to see some sort of thing where if you're in a career mode, whatever school you choose, say you pick Duke or, Florida or, Alabama. Duke, let's just choose Duke. Say you choose to play for Duke. You're kind of in like an open world on Duke's campus in Durham where you get to walk around, you see Cameron Indoor Stadium, you see the buildings they got on campus. I think that would be so cool. I mean, as a UConn fan, it would be really cool if someone were to choose UConn in their My Career mode, be able to walk around in stores, see Gamble Pavilion, see the bookstore, just all that. I think that would be really, really cool. How that would work with playing with other people in that kind of open world thing, I don't know. I don't even know if you necessarily call it an open world at that point, but that's definitely two things I would like to see: the play calling and just being able to actually kind of like navigate and walk around the college campuses in a career mode.
Definitely. That I didn't even think about that. That would be amazing to see and even more amazing to play. And it would add such an additional part of the college basketball culture and the college culture in general because, those are professional players. Real college players have real college lives. They live in dorms.
Right.
They do work. I get it. The CFP's kind of worked around that as well. They giving opportunity to get grades and get tests going. But, I find those things can be amplified over time, which is, I guess, another good thing about it coming out this, later on in this decade because things are a lot more fleshed out. I think if CFP produces something good, it will likely get picked off and put into what would be CBB 29.
Right.
The question I kind of had for you, at least, is where would you start? What would you do first?
I think the thing I would most definitely do first is kind of what I talked about. And I would go into whatever type of My League, I don't know what name they would come up for it, where I go in, I choose a random program, and I go and rebuild it. I'm super fascinated with just the whole recruiting process and managing NIL. I think that stuff is super fascinating in real life. And that's something I would definitely love to just be able to get a taste of. I mean, obviously not on a real scale, but it's something as close as you can get in a college basketball video game, at least I'd hope, where I'm being able to go out and recruit players out of high school and the transfer portal, rebuild a roster, try to turn, like I said at the beginning of the video, a mid-major program or middle of the pack high major team and make them a national championship contender year in and year out. I think that's something that I would spend hours doing. I mean, I've always, like, growing up, I've loved going into My League on 2K and rebuilding a team like, say, like the Kings or just a team that's not all that great and springing off, a dynasty in My League in the NBA doing that. I think that's something that I would enjoy so much in a college basketball video game. What do you think you would do first?
I think there's definitely a few things. I almost want to try out a career mode first. I don't care if it's 2K or EA. I really want to see how they do the high school system. I think that's such an interesting thing. If they have AAU, how they're going to do like the Montverde. Is there an IMG? Are they going to have those things? That's a huge deal in college basketball sphere, which is very different from college football. How do you get in? Can you stay for 4 years? Or do you leave in 1 year? Like, can you do something like that? Like, are you a one and done freshman? Like, how hard is that to do? And then I'd probably switch over to the My League Dynasty career stuff. I think they're going to make this game very realistic. And if they make the game realistic, it's going to make mid-majors, especially low mid-majors, super hard to play. So I'm going to start off, I'm probably going to do a lower level, high major team like a Virginia Tech or Penn State or a Butler and try and build them back or build them to a championship caliber team. And maybe as that coach, try and find a way to a higher level. Or I could start a completely different game, maybe after like I've learned everything, and start the lowest level. Like start off in like the Northeastern Conference
Yeah.
or in one of the HBCUs and really try not only to, as a coach, work my way up, but transfer my players up the valley. Like I really want to have like freshmen that work their way to a high major. I think that would be so rewarding and honestly decently realistic. There are guys that are like, for example, with Iowa, there are guys on that roster that 2 years ago were in D2.
Right.
So that could be a very realistic thing to run in a CBB game.
Yeah. I mean, I love that point you brought up. I mean, thinking of like rebuilding a college program, it'd be so fun in the transfer portal in the offseason to be able to pluck out some of the diamonds in the rough from those mid-major programs, try to strike gold on a like a Dalton Connect, Chaz Lanier type guy, John Tanji. I mean, that would be so fun, especially if you're in like a connected my league with your like your friends or something, and you all choose a program, and then every offseason you're
Ooh.
competing with your friends to land transfers, land 5-star freshmen. That'd be something that I think would be
Do
so
you?
fun.
That's that kind of. Do you think they would do multiplayer? Do you think that would work?
I would think they should. I think that they'd be losing out on a lot of gameplay. I mean, a lot of users coming to the game. Just I think that's something that you want to play with your friends. I think they've been missing out big time on a huge money making aspect of the game if you're not able to, play a my career with your friends or against other people, or play in a my league or whatever they end up calling it, a franchise mode with your friends, where you're all able to choose a program like you can in college football right now, and yeah, just be able to play each other, create your schedule every year so you can try to schedule your friends. Say in your out of conference, or if you're in the same conference, play each other in your conference schedule. I just think that would be really, really cool thing to have.
Definitely. And honestly, I think a really cool thing too, and I know CFP does it, I want to control the conferences themselves. I
Yeah,
want to bring back the old Big East. I want to kick out Texas and Oklahoma and bring them back to the Big 12. I want to rebuild the Pac 12 as they used to be. I want to have the old conferences. I want to try and mess around with those as well. And I honestly want to see how that affects the tournament, which is the big X factor.
right.
How do you think they make the tournament? And how do you think they model the lineups and seeds?
The tournament's going to be really interesting because, of course, it's a field of 60 right now. Could end up being a field of 72, 74 by the time we get to 2028. But it is going to be interesting to see how they do a selection committee. I'm sure you're going to see some really random teams get in the tournament in a season simulation. I think largely they're just kind of going to have to go off of kind of what I guess college football CFP 25 and 26 are, where it is a little bit different in college basketball, just considering there's more teams that make a playoff. But you kind of got to go off conference standings. You got to go off, the bid stealers is going to be another thing that's going to be really interesting with the conference tournaments. But yeah, I mean, I think they're probably going to have to work with real or current or former selection committee members to really get a true taste on the process that really goes into fielding the 68. Because I think if you don't account for the work that those people put in on the NCAA selection committee, and you don't really draw from what they tell you, then it's going to be a flawed system in how they do the tournament.
No, I 100% agree with you. I honestly think that there kind of needs to be a lot more work on seeding. I know CFP 25 had some issues with the seeding, but that's a 14 team or 12 team, whatever it is, tournament. This is 68 teams. And I also want the challenge to be there too. I don't care how skilled you are. If you are a 16 seed, you shouldn't be beating a 1 seed. You just should not be doing that unless you truly have the metrics to do it. And that's incredibly rare and incredibly hard to do. I don't want the sim producing a 2-15 upset every year.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
you guys should not be producing that. You should have a couple upsets, but things shouldn't be that chaotic. March Madness is madness. Don't get me wrong. You should have every once in a while an 11 seed magically rise into the Final Four. But I shouldn't be here being you know what? My 15 seed Harvard is here in the Elite Eight.
Yeah.
Like I shouldn't be talking like that. Shouldn't be like a thing that you should expect nor strive to do. If anything, that 15 seed should just up to the 2 seed, come back next year with a reloaded roster, get like a 10 seed, and then work your way up. Like it should follow how normal college basketball should work, where eventually you get a high enough seed and the pack becomes reasonable. Remember, there's never been a seed under an 8 that's even made the natty game. Any team below that, especially a mid-major team, push its way up that metric and make it to a natty game or anything like that. It shouldn't be like that. There shouldn't be a way to do that, especially on an easy level, because there isn't like that in college football, and there really shouldn't be in any way else. Like that's kind of like the thing that I really want them to model. And if they do correct, I'm very happy about the game.
Definitely. And another thing that I kind of wanted to ask is, I know it's not coming out till 2028, so that's unfortunate. But say the video game was coming out this summer for this upcoming college basketball season. What are some players that you would be most excited to play as in the game?
I mean, honestly, I wanted to ask you if the game came out last year, because listen,
Oh,
I like the teams that are I like the players and the teams that are right here right now. But let's talk about last year. This if this game was modeling last year, who's on your cover?
so going into this past season, who would be on the cover, or
Yes,
going into this next year?
not
Because
going into this season. Like,
if it was
you
going
know,
into this next year, I would probably say they put Walter Clayton on the cover. But if it's going into if it's going into the last year, I would say you probably put the likes of someone like a Zach Edey maybe on the cover, just considering him being the
Ooh,
back-to-back National Player of the Year in those preceding the going into this past season. It's tough to think about who else. I mean,
I
I
would put
think
Cooper Flag.
Cooper
I'm
Flag
gonna be real
would have
with
been
you.
a great
I
pick.
get it. I get it. That's a crazy move to make, but
Yeah, but I mean, hey,
in that spectrum, if you want to put a guy down there, put Cooper Flag if you want one person. But if they're
right?
going to do what they do with CFP, put a ton of players on. I
Oh
would
yeah,
love to
definitely.
see Mark Sears, Caleb Love,
Yeah,
Hugh Dickinson,
R.J. Davis.
RJ Davis, RJ Lewis, Rick Pitino, not just players, like a whole mass of people. I think would be so entertaining on a cover of a game because that's a 2K thing I can get, but an EA game with how the CFP models have been made, I would love that. And where you know what? And to top it off, if you were to do to this previous season, who's your highest ranked player? What are they at?
Going into this year,
Going to this year, who is the highest ranked player?
I would probably say the highest rated player would probably either be, yeah, it's tough. I'd probably say one of either JT Toppin or Braden Smith. I think those are the two National Player of the Year front runners. I think Braden Smith, arguably just because he's the first team All American, Bob Cousy Award winner, I would probably say his highest rated player going into the game. Maybe him and JT Toppin are both at the same rating, maybe at like I mean, I don't know, in the scale of a college basketball landscape, maybe they're at like a 95, 96 each. In terms of guys I'd be really excited to play as, I mean, Todd Pettiford's probably number one on my list. I think he'd be so fun to play with. Throw out some other names, maybe Kyan Anthony at Syracuse. Love to be able to play as him. And, solo ball as a UConn fan, I think solo ball would be a really, really fun player to use just as 3-point shooting. But did you have any other names you wanted to go in
I
for?
honestly I kind of like the idea of having Smith and Toppin. I put him between a 94 and 96. I'd give AJ Devanza some love. I'd
Yeah,
put him in there. But hear me out. If you want to talk about like previous guys, I'd give Cooper Flag a 98. I'd give Cooper Flag a
yeah,
98.
it's not
I'm
bad.
being
What would
totally
you have
right
Zach
now.
Edey as?
I think I'd give Zach Edey a 99. Maybe
Yeah,
that's too
that's fair.
much, but
I don't think so. I
people
mean, no one's really stopping him.
I
So
know Dalton would like 95,
yeah,
96 at his prime. Like, and if there's anything that they can do, if they can do all-time teams, like
yeah,
2K, if 2K
that
gets
would
their
be
hands on the game and they make an all-time Michigan Ab 5,
great.
I would love to have that opportunity because the thing that pains me the most is that we're missing out on so many good previous years of basketball. I
Right.
want to see AJ Devanza in this game. I want to see Cooper Flag, Zach Edey,
Yeah.
even like going back into the late 2010s, Kyle Guy, Ty Jerome,
Right.
Carson Edwards. I want to see these guys in the game. I don't want to just be stuck with what we have.
Plus, I think it would be so good for people to like go back. I mean, it would just be going down like memory lane, remembering some of their favorite college teams. People, maybe younger people who didn't really get into the sport or maybe didn't watch it growing up, them going back and discovering some older players who were really, really good. I mean, one of my favorite teams ever was 2013-14 Syracuse with the likes of Tyler Ennis, Jeremy Grant, DJ Fair, Trevor Cooney, Rakeem Christmas, my mistake. I mean, that would be such a fun team to play as, I think. Of course, they didn't get it done in real life, but I definitely think it's a team that'd be super fun to play as.
Easily. That would be, see, that's the stuff that like would entertain me so much. And that's honestly the tip of the iceberg. Like we could go on, we could have replaying old games, like how MLB The Show will replay moments. Imagine they replayed national championship games. Try and recreate 2008, where Mario Chambers hits that shot to send the game in overtime. Try and do the Florida Atlantic, like the San Diego State over Florida Atlantic buzzer beater. Try and be Lamont Bubble. Things like little things like that tie in the length of the culture, because this is an insanely long running sport. There are players that many people can name that go way back, and that's honestly a lot of sports. But this is a game that can be so in depth that it can really bring a community together. Because once again, me and Kanaye are graduating by the time this game comes out. I don't know how in touch we will both be with the modern landscape. If you're gonna give me Cooper Flag on a silver platter or a Carson Edwards in the game, I honestly wouldn't mind just playing with that first.
Yeah,
For
definitely.
my sake, because that's what I grew up watching.
Right, right. No, I definitely hear you out there. I mean, being able to go back and play as some of your favorite players you watched growing up. I mean, Miles Powell, towards the top of my list. Just his run at Seton Hall was awesome. One of my favorite players I ever watched was Tyus Battle at Syracuse. I don't know if he'd ever be in the game, but I'd love to go back and play as him. He's the guy who got me into college basketball in the first place. So being able to go back and play as him, I think would be so cool. But again, there's so much they're going to be able to do with this game. I mean, I'm really, really excited for what is to come with college basketball, whether it comes out with EA or 2K. I just hope we get it sooner than 2028. Who knows? Probably not. But again, I'm really stoked.
We will take whatever we can get.
Yeah.
I'm glad they're finally doing it. And we're going to keep you all updated. They'll probably have trailers later on in the month or the year that we can break down for you live. But we're excited. I'm hoping you guys are excited too.
Yeah, definitely let us know in the comments below what you guys feel about the college basketball video game announcement. Talk about whether you think EA or 2K will make the better product. Drop some player names that guys you'd like to play as if the game were coming out next year. Just players in general, if they come out with all-time rosters. Who you'd like to play as, teams you'd like to go back and play as. What team are you going to choose to rebuild in some sort of franchise, my league type of mode, whatever they end up calling it. We're all curious to see what you guys have to say about this game coming out. But I think that pretty much wraps up everything we had to cover on the announcement EA made, and 2K adding their little side note to it as well. As always, really does help you engage with our content any way you can. And until next episode, we'll see you all next time.